So I made a little bit of a mistake and I wasn't recording. So I worked through all of these. So we're just going to go over the answers really quickly for 1 through 5, and then hopefully I'll not screw up the rest of the recordings. So this figure illustrates the market for calculators in a country. We can see that the domestic price is below the world price, which means we're going to be exporting these calculators. Okay. And because we're exporting these calculators, we know that suppliers are going to win and consumers are going to lose. However, this question is asking for, as a result of trade, total surplus increases by. Well, it's going to increase by this red triangle here because nobody was getting that previously. So we just need to do 1/2 the base times height. So we've got 20 and 15 is going to be our 2 points for the height, and the base is going to be from 80 to 180. So we go ahead and we plug that 20 and 15 in right there, and then we plug in the 180 minus 80 right there. And once we do all of that math, we get to 250. Our answer is going to be C. Question 2. The nation of Aquilonia has decided to end its policy of not trading with the rest of the world. When it ends its trade restrictions, it discovers that it is importing rice, exporting steel, and neither importing nor exporting TVs. So when we're going to import rice, we know that the world price must be less than the price at autarky. So then this green area shows us our producer surplus before trade. And then this purple area shows us the producer surplus with trade. Similarly, in the steel market where we're exporting, we know that the world price must be greater than the price of autarky. So in the steel market, the same thing, our little green area shows us the producer surplus without trade. And our purple area shows us the producer surplus with trade. We can see it's gone up in the steel market and gone down in the rice market. So looking at our solutions, we see that A, it's higher in the steel market, lower in the rice market, perfect. The last thing we have to consider is what happens in the TV market. If we look at the TV market, well, nothing's changed. They don't import or export, so it's all supplied domestically. So then it remains unchanged in the TV market. Our correct answer for 2 is going to be A. Question 3. The following diagram shows the domestic demand and domestic supply in a market. In addition, assume that the world price in this market is $40 per unit. So I went ahead and I put that world price right there in red. Then the question asks us to further say that the government imposes a tariff of $20 per unit relative to the free trade outcome. The imposition of the tariff decreases imports and increases domestic production. Well, previously, we were importing this blue amount, the difference of 1,800 and 600 was being imported. So we were importing 1,200. Now we need to find how much are we importing afterwards. Well, the gap between how much we're consuming of that 1,500 right there and the 900 is going to give us how much we're now importing of 600. The difference between these two, so when we take the 1,200 minus the 600, gives us how much imports were lost. But some of those lost imports are going to be made up for by domestic producers now producing more of those goods. So previously, when we were at full free trade. There were only 600 being produced domestically. Afterwards, we're producing 900 domestically. So then we take that 900, subtract the 600. That means we've added 300 units of production domestically. So then our answer is going to be C, decreases imports of the good by 600 and increases domestic production of the good by 300. Question 4. The domestic country is Nicaragua. Which of the following statements is accurate? Well, we don't need to go through anything. I went ahead and calculated the gains of trade from there, but you've already done that before in this, so we don't need to worry about it. It's that green area there. We find out that producer surplus with trade, this little blue area down here, is actually 375. We do that by doing 1/2 base times height. It goes from 2 to 7, and then 0 to 150. That gives us 1/2 of 750, which gives us 375. Question 5. The vertical distance between points A and B represents the original tax. So the original tax can be represented by the vertical distance AB. Suppose the government is deciding what to do, whether to lower the tax to CD or raise it to FG. Which of the following statements is not correct? Compared to the original tax, the larger tax will increase tax revenue. Sometimes when you raise the tax revenue increases. Sometimes when you raise the tax revenue falls. So we actually have to calculate the tax revenue. Remember, the tax revenue is just the amount of the tax. So this is our tax amount, tax size. And then this is the quantity of goods we're being taxed. So we multiply those together to get tax revenue. That gives us 7.5 times 0.5, which gives us 3.75. Lastly, the next question says, compared to the original tax, the smaller tax will decrease deadweight loss. Oh, I apologize. Next, we need to look at our tax revenue from the initial tax. Well, that's the difference between 4 and 9, which is the size of the tax, times how many goods we're taxing, which is 1. That's going to give us an answer of 5. 5 is greater than 3.7, so tax revenue doesn't go up as we raise the tax. All right. Compared to the original tax, the smaller tax will decrease deadweight loss. That is always going to be true. Within the same market, a smaller tax always gives us a smaller deadweight loss.